Want to introduce our panelists for today. Again, if you know hip hop, if you know Atlanta, you can't have that conversation without David Banner. So he's been someone, again, not a native Atlantan, but someone who has represented the South and Atlanta for such a long time and has represented, again, Black masculinity for a long time. So really want to thank him for being here. Dr. Nicole Peoples, just getting to know Dr. Peoples, she was recommended by our friends at Morehouse. She has a different approach to medicine. Right. And so we don't want to just talk about the things that we know work and the things that we know don't work. We want to really have a holistic view of medicine. So Dr. Peoples has a very, very, more informed view. And Dr. Cardenas is joining us from the Rockefeller Neuroscience Institute at the University of West Virginia University. I'm sorry, I keep doing that. West Virginia University. He's notable for me. I grew up in Pittsburgh, huge Steelers fan. Mike Webster just passed away, I think, just a couple days ago, if I'm not mistaken, was a center for the, kind of Steel Curtain teams. And, he had some CTE issues, I believe. And so Dr. Cardenas deals with CTE and brain trauma. And again, in the spirit of keeping all this together, talking about, holistic health, wanted to have this conversation. So we'll get started. Hey, man, so you can't let the big dude walk up behind you. That's something I learned. I actually want to start with you, man, because I'm going to be honest. I'm not a comic book fan, but I watched a lot of television. And so when you first came out, I knew who David Banner was, right? Or the archetype of David Banner, right? And you are what a lot of people would think, is a Black masculine figure. But you were vulnerable enough to share your journey, right, with some of the mental health issues, some of the physical health issues. And again, if I'm being, trying to be funny, I would ask you, what were you thinking? But what was on your mind in sharing your trip?
That's actually a great question. I was skinny most of my life. And all of a sudden, came this real muscular guy. And I remember watching the Captain America story where he was the skinniest guy in the army. So he ended up going to the doctor and said, "Why did you give me this serum?" He said, "Because you have been at the other end of the sword for so long, you know how it feels when it's time for you to swing it." So me being from Mississippi, watching stars come down to Mississippi and act like we were nasty. Like people wouldn't even come out to VIP. Like we look at y'all all the time. We give you the same amount of money that anybody else will give you, but you won't. And thank you, Paz. I love your stories that you always give me, And so I said that I would try to never be that I would take this Hulk-like form. And it's crazy because I almost changed my name from David Banner because there was so many parallels. People don't know, I was a semester and a thesis away from my master's degree. I had a 3.9987 in accelerated master's program. I've done all these things scholastically, was one of the top student leaders of all times at HBCU, but I would always travel around the world alone. So what I promised to myself is that I would take that strength and I could be vulnerable and talk about things other rappers wouldn't talk about because I still choke your ass. I ain't got no problem with that at all. I just told somebody that if you want to debate, we can debate. If you want to rap, we can rap. If you want to throw these hands, we can throw these hands. I got guns for days. I'm from Mississippi. No, however they want to do it, right? But what I did is instead of turning it on Black people like a lot of Black people do, instead of using that power, I could use it for good. And for me, I sort of look at this capitalistic system and I look at myself almost as an anti-hero because I don't really like the bad people or the good people. When people talk about gun laws, I always tell them the two people who use the most guns against Black people both don't really like Black people. That's the robbers and the police. So the two people who talk about gun laws the most, the people who talk about gun laws are actually the ones who need it the most. And the two people who are not affected by it are the ones who are usually holding them against Black people. So to answer your question directly, I always wanted to use gangster rap. I always wanted to use my big Black body for something that really mattered and being open and telling people that I'm scared, telling them that I have anxiety, telling people that I don't have all the answers, it's okay.
I appreciate that, man. More because again, somebody coming from Pittsburgh, we didn't have hip hop.
Hold on, one other thing. I'm sorry for
Okay, no, all good.
telling them how handsome I am, boy. Y'all see me? I just lost 20 more pounds. All right. Hey, girl. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're good, man. You're good. I appreciate that. Now, so you talked about your mental health struggles.
Man, I got to deal with me every day. Hold on a second. I love me.
I'm about to lose control of this one. I can see, Rails.
Good one, sir. All right, go ahead.
No, you're good. And so, but I appreciate you sharing your kind of journey, right? And Dr. Cardenas, you deal with the neurological kind of elements of this situation. So I'm curious, when you hear David's story, and again, I didn't say it, and you referred to it, but David Banner was the Incredible Hulk, right? He was the television version of Bruce Banner, and so that Incredible Hulk analogy is very apropos because again, he kind of went off the rails, at times, and you kind of talk about that a little bit. But when you hear his story, what is it that you think from the neurological perspective that what strikes a nerve with you in this conversation?
Absolutely. So the biggest thing, of course, is the area that I work in, as you mentioned, is in concussion and brain injury. And so I see the flip side of everything that we see in a healthy brain. And one of the things that is most prevalent when we see somebody who suffers a concussion or brain injury is instantly they have a lot of these physical symptoms of headaches and dizziness, sleep problems, and they have a lot of thinking problems, which are all neurological. But what people have a hard time appreciating is the behavioral health piece of things, the anxiety that comes with a concussion and brain injury, the depression, all those things that we have unfortunately separated. Our society and the business of medicine has separated physical health from mental health. But the truth is, it's all brain health, and everything that you do for your physical body has an impact on your brain. So I'll give you a few examples. One is when we look at somebody who has anxiety, when they describe how they feel. If you ask somebody how they feel their heart is racing. They feel that they have trouble breathing. Those are physical things that our body is doing, our brain is doing. And you flip that over, you tell somebody to take a whole jug of coffee and chug it. Their heart rate goes up and then they feel anxious, right? And again, that's that physical element causing this emotional change. And then the last thing I'll say that's really most important, especially to the topic at hand, and that is when we were looking at chronic brain diseases like Alzheimer's disease, we hear about all these things that we need to do for our body and our brain. We need a good diet. We need good exercise. We need to make sure that we are doing everything that's good for our heart because it's good for our brain. The most important thing that we can do to stave off things like dementia and Alzheimer's disease is to be social, to be engaged emotionally with fellow human beings.
That's amazing. Dr. Peoples, and so he asked me to call him Javier. I'm not going to not call you Dr. Peoples because I think it's, well, I'm going to call you Dr. Peoples. I think it's really important that we, as Black men, respect people that have put in as much work as you have. So, I'm again hearing this conversation now, and your approach to medicine might be, some might consider non-traditional. But if you look at, again, I'm 56. My brain doesn't always work as good sometimes, but I'm 56. What are some of the things that I should be mindful of? Again, have a heart, a family heart condition. We have addiction in our family, being vulnerable and kind of candid here. When you hear these stories of people like me, what is it that I should be mindful of?
So for Black men, Black women, for all of us, I think the thing that we don't talk enough about are our hormones. And in my practice, I really focus a lot, particularly for men, around testosterone and the use of testosterone, not just for what most people think about testosterone for physical form or muscular growth, but also for brain health, for depression, for anxiety. A lot of the symptoms that men experience, the ones that you kind of described, even around your heart, around your brain, around your mood, your energy levels, these are symptoms that, oftentimes we think correlate to women in menopause, but men actually go through something very similar called andropause, where they're actually losing testosterone over time as well. And that can look like anxiety. It can look like depression. It can look like heart disease. It can look like brain disease. And so it's important for for all of us to kind of have that discussion, to know that that's something that can impact the way that you feel, look, and age, and to put that at the forefront early on, not just wait until you get sick. You don't want to be reactive in that way. You want to be proactive.
Yeah, and so Banner, let you get your. Are you taking notes?
Yes.
Because I'm saying I'm about to drop some knowledge. Okay, no, I'm just playing.
No,
So, so I'm curious, like as you're going through your, if you don't mind sharing, kind of some of the things that led you to changing your lifestyle and having these conversations with people like me that want to listen, because I want to learn. Like Pops was talking about across the street. It's important for me to learn. What is it that I can learn from your journey?
Well, first of all, I do want to say the difference between music and I'm specifically saying this is my appreciation for De La Soul for giving us options. Like, I don't think anything is wrong with hip hop. I think the problem is a lack of balance. You understand what I'm saying? Outkast was the greatest example of that. We needed Andre and Big Boy, right? And so, did I do a lot of the things that I did in the streets? Yes. But I also love comic books. Also, I'm a big kid. And that was one of the things that I was saying that I'm grateful for now, is that I'm big enough that I can be a big kid and then choke somebody if I have to. But the thing that we don't talk about, and it almost brings me to tears, is that I went through the worst depression that I ever went through in my life about 2 years ago. And I spent about $30,000 of my own money on doctors, right? Nobody still to this day could figure out what was wrong with me. And then I started studying on my own about my cortisol levels and the things that I was going through. And then the stuff that helped me get through it. We don't talk about those things. Like, this room should be filled right now.
And just to be clear, cortisol is a stress hormone.
Yes. And we got to think, I come from the poorest state in the United States, and they yelled out to the world, David Banner got $10 million. Dollars. Everybody was like, I went from most people, where I'm from, you don't come up to people. I went from being a wolf and from being a hunter to being the hunted. I went from my own family scheming on me, the preacher scheming on me, all of this attention all the time. I just changed my phone number. It's funny, a DJ just came up to me and said, Banner, you changed your number? I was like, yeah. And that was part of my healing. You all, just so you know, when I would go to the doctor, my blood pressure was so high that they used to try to keep me. My blood pressure was at 200 and maintaining at 200. And I'm walking, like, I used to have to walk out because they used to try to take me to the emergency room. Like, y'all white folks ain't gonna keep me in here. Like, I'm too big for that, move out the way. Like, I checked my blood pressure, it was 104 the last time I checked it. Like, I've literally helped heal myself. But what I realized, that it was my diet, and it was every type of diet. Not just me stop eating pork, not me just being vegetarian. It's who I talk to. It's the access that people had to me. It was how I viewed and treated myself. People think I'm joking. They're like, oh, David Banner is so arrogant now. No, I just love me more than I love you. And I'm not going to let you treat me any kind of way. I'm not going to let you handle me any kind of way. I tell women that I mentor sometimes. I said, baby, people are going to treat you exactly how you treat yourself. And my therapist told me something that helped my mental and physical healing too. And my therapist ain't even built like that. I thought he had been listening to too many rap records. My therapist said, David Banner, you always talking about black people. You always talk about black people. Then why won't you treat yourself the way that you want to see black people treated? And I promise you, when I started loving myself, being very clear on what I put in my mouth, what I put in my ears, what I put in my eyes, the stress levels of what we have at all times. I even found out driving. When I went to Bali and I wasn't driving for about a month or two, and I came back and was on the highway, I almost pissed on myself. I was like, hold on, these cars are going too fast. And then I realized all the bright colors that we're feeding our children, all of the loud music, all of this stuff is part of the reason why we are the way that we are, and then we don't check it. All the salt, all the sugar, all of the stress. I don't watch horror movies anymore. Black people's lives in America is horror movies. I ain't got to watch it. I could just watch the news. So I make sure that everything that I do now is pleasant to my spirit, my mind, my soul, my heart, my eyes, and my ears at all times. As soon as I did that, it was no pill on this earth that could change me. Now, I do believe when I started doing stuff like, I took about 2 months and stopped eating processed food. No process. If it had a tag on it, I didn't eat it. And literally, my blood pressure hadn't been the same since I did that. My blood pressure pills actually started working once I believe I cleaned my palate and allowed myself. And I think one of the reasons why I will forever be a gangster rapper is because as much as people criticize, I had to tell this church lady one time, I said, you will accept the David in the Bible, and he sent a woman's husband to war so he could lay with him, but you won't listen to the words of David Banner. I might be God's guy too. And all of the things that people say through rap is the reason why I'm the conduit and why these children will consider stuff that regular people don't tell them. And I'll say this and I'll be quiet.
No, don't be quiet.
As much as they criticize rappers, well, you doctors are lying. The stuff that you're giving, these petroleum-based pills that they're giving everybody, that's a lie. Christopher Columbus did not find America. We was already here. That's a lie. So as much as we criticize rappers, we don't have the internal fortitude to say that most of this stuff is a lie. And it all adds into what both of these doctors are trying to tell us, but that is part of our mental, physical, and spiritual diet.
So I was actually going to go to Dr. Cardenas, and I really want to have this conversation. Before this, I want to tee something up. I want you guys each to think of one thing that we can leave here with and do on Monday morning. Just something simple that we can actually do. But given what you just said, I want to go to Dr. Peoples here. You were talking about testosterone levels and them resetting testosterone levels to basically fit what is convenient for the bottom line, right? Kind of for someone's revenue, as opposed to what's good for me as a 56-year-old black man who has had, I don't know how many concussions. I don't really talk about it, but I'm going to talk about that next. But, there's personalized healthcare, but then there is this other force that's out there trying to take the money that's in our pocket and take our culture, as we were talking about across the street. So I'm curious, I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, so the resetting of the testosterone is not necessarily for revenue driven, because we're not even really marketing testosterone to clients or patients. In
I went to Harvard Business School, so everything is about capitalism. So I apologize for that.
Everything is. I agree with that. But in this particular case, I think what David was saying is really important. Is that the way that our healthcare system is currently structured is around disease-centered care. And when you focus on disease-centered care, the goal is to make a diagnosis and then to prescribe something, to prescribe a pill. That's how I was taught in medical school. It wasn't until I started to do integrative and functional medicine that I realize that, there's a better way. There's a different way of approaching healthcare that has nothing to do with pills. Now, pills are very great when you're in acute situations. When your blood pressure is 200, I do want you to go to the emergency room. But before it gets to 200, there's so much we can be doing. And what you said was really important about stress levels and cortisol and how that impacts particularly people of color. Our cortisol levels, our stress levels are so much higher because we're constantly living under stress and feeling like we're being attacked, that over the disparities that we observe in our bodies, things like high blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes, all of these things come from stress. And if we're not addressing that, then we're waiting until a disease pops up. We're waiting till we're depressed. We're waiting till we're anxious. We're waiting until some diagnosis tells us we have to go on a pill. And if we were to start much earlier, if we were to actually start talking about the things that actually drive illness, things like the things that we eat, the things that we listen to, the sleep that we get, the stress and how we manage that. And in addition to hormones, that's just a piece of it. But the whole picture has to be addressed much earlier, before the disease is actually apparent.
Thank you for that. That's a critical piece of this. That's why we're here, right? To have those conversations, to have them earlier, to be, the first thing can't be a pill in the bottle, right? And be proactive, right? So Dr. Cardenas, I was the kid that boxed in the one-car garage, right? And I wasn't the best boxer, right? I've had concussions playing football, playing basketball, all the above. And now, kind of I feel a certain way. I'm curious, what happens at my age to my brain, and should I be like, again, someone who's been physically active and has had some challenges, right? How should I be thinking about my healthcare given that piece?
Right. So there's a number of things that really tie all this together when it comes to our brains and exposure to repetitive head impact. So in addition to concussions, the injury and the consequence of the injury, we're worried about simply exposing people to multiple hits to the head.
And I have a question about that, because I've heard that quite often. How much time do I need to rest between those kind of repeated?
Yeah, if you well, it really is symptom based as opposed to time based. So some people recover very quickly, and they might be able to go back to doing something where they hit their heads again a week later. Some people might take 2 weeks later. Some people might take 3 weeks later. And so the time frame is less important than actually a full recovery at rest and with activity. What we can see often actually is as a consequence of repetitive head impact and from concussions is because the pituitary gland is on a very thin stalk and is responsible for the majority of our hormones, is we see something called post-traumatic hypopituitarism, for everybody to repeat 3 times after the end of the session. If you're going to remember one thing, that's going to be it. But this is really important because one of the things that goes, the most common hormone that is decreased is growth hormone, which in adults, it's just the name of the hormone, but it's responsible for energy and cognition, and it's treatable. And one of the most important things, to your point, is if you don't look for it, you can't diagnose it. Whereas somebody like Dr. Peoples, if she's made aware of these things, and she and others like her are telling all of us, neurologists and others, that you need to be looking for this because this is a problem that can often be misidentified. And then you have this global health initiative, brain health initiative, that includes a number of those things that I mentioned to you before in terms of your heart health, your cardiovascular health, socialization, safety. And I'm talking about safety broadly. Safety in wearing a helmet when you're boxing or wearing a helmet when you're playing football, safety when you're on a bicycle, but also safety in your community.
So this is actually a perfect time to stop, because you're going to be on another panel. We're going to talk about, it's called artificial intelligence, and talk about the technology of safety. And you and I've had that conversation. But before we go, so I do want to ask you guys, what's the one thing that we can do on Monday morning that you would just recommend to the folks watching here in the audience that will see this video later? What's the one thing we can do on Monday morning?
Sleep. Sleep is so underrepresented. Our ability to recover after any stressor, it doesn't matter if it's stress or if it's eating or whatever we're doing. As we get older, our sleep becomes more vital to our brain health and the rest of our health. So if I could say anything, it's to prioritize sleep.
Okay. Dr. Cardenas and Banner, you're going to get the last word.
Yeah, and I'm gonna agree with David, and that is indeed that you got to take care of yourself, and most importantly, you're not separating your mental health from your physical health because they're one and the same.
This may seem simple, but forgive yourself and be kind to yourself. You did the best with what you had when you had it. I'm learning to have fun and take one thing at a time. I know this may seem small, but be kind. Like, I've been blessed to have money and not have children or be married yet, so I have a little bit more disposable income. If I see somebody older, elder, getting groceries or something, I buy the groceries. If somebody's sitting down at their table, being kind. I don't know, it has changed everything about my life. When I just inherently, I really believe that we can clean the earth if everybody stepped in front of their yard and picked up a piece of paper. You don't have to go across the street. Just you be kind to you, and then be kind to the closest person that you can. And I wanted to say sleep too, but you already said it. I tell all my rapper friends, if you ain't selling 20 million, I'm in the studio at 10 a.m. and I'm out at 9. I don't care how dope you are. I'll sit around and wait on you. But my sleep means more to me than anything, because, and Corey Smith, who's out in the crowd, is one of my best friends, one of the few people that I can call on. Because one of the things I was going to tell you, doctor, and I was going to ask you about this, and maybe you can, explain it to me off stage, is just how it feels when you're so attractive that women only look at your body and they don't really listen to what you have to say and your thoughts. I don't know if I could take it anymore, Doc.
Hey, that's it. That's
I know how you feel.
that's a wrap. We can't. Nothing's going to top that. Appreciate you guys. Really much love and respect.
I'm sorry, Corey. Corey, come back. I'm sorry, bro. Daylight, forgive me. I'm a gangster rapper from the South.